This episode of the Hunt Stealth podcast is brought to you by ReadyWise Outdoor. When you're chasing adventure, you need energy you can count on. ReadyWise Pro Meals are packed with over 30 grams of protein and 500 plus calories per serving to keep you energized no matter the terrain. From the protein-packed breakfast skillet to the Thai coconut cashew curry, these lightweight, freeze-dried meals are ready in minutes. Made in the USA, ReadyWise is built for hunters and explorers just like you. Visit ReadyWiseOutdoor.com and use promo code RYAN20 to save 20% off your next order.
You're listening to the Hunt Stealth Podcast with Ryan Uffins. The podcast where we dive headfirst into the wild. Whether you're an aspiring hunter or an adventurer seeking the untamed, together we'll explore the strategies and stories that lead to success in the great outdoors.
Welcome to another episode of the Hunt Stealth Podcast. Excited to have, we got three great guys on the show today. We've got Trever Thompson, Tyrel Thompson, and Josh Evans. Guys, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, so these guys, yeah, for sure. Hey, these guys are, they own PSC Outdoors. We'll make sure you guys go check the show notes. We'll get the handles to all these guys in there so you can go give them a follow. But Trever, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing and just give us a little bit of background on how PSC Outdoors came to fruition.
Yeah, so Ty and I are obviously brothers. Josh and I is our adopted brother. We've known each other about 15 years. Ty and I grew up hunting with our dad, and then Josh is also someone that's raised hunting with his family as well. We're all from small towns, Emery County. Josh is from Beaver, and then Josh and I live in St. George, and Ty lives in Price. Like I said, we've hunted our whole life, but Ty and I were actually guiding for about 4 or 5 years for Albrecht Outfitters with Taylor Albrecht. Mostly buffalo hunts on the Henry Mountains here in Utah. We still love Taylor to death. We appreciate that time we spent with him. But one day we were just like, do we want to see if we have our own niche and maybe take some of the little guys? We're fully aware that there is a stigma around outfitters, especially in Utah. We
You'll
really
have to enlighten me, Trever, because I haven't heard any stigma. Like I said, I'm new to this game, so maybe you shouldn't share this with me.
Well, I think there's just a stigma surrounding, big coveted tags, lots of money, rich trigger man, and I'm not going to pick on any particular outfitter because we don't want to do that. We don't operate that way, but there's always just kind of this stigma of like guides have ruined hunting in Utah. They're taking these big, rich clients that feel entitled to the animals, and that's just not really our niche. We kind of sat down one day. We actually all went and grabbed breakfast, and we were really hesitant to even do it because we're all do-it-yourself hunters. We believe in, guys doing it and figuring it out on their own. But we also understand that there is probably a space for the little guy that doesn't know a unit, right? Like you wait 20, 25 years for a tag, and one of our, our bread and butters is buffalo tags on the Henry Mountains. And I mean, you talk to some of these guys, they're like, I've been to the Henry Mountains for 10 years. I've never seen a buffalo. And so, you're kind of,
those are kind of hard to miss too.
Yeah. And it would blow your mind where they live, and it'd blow your mind how easy they are to miss. So we were kind of like, maybe our space is for that guy that's waited his entire life to draw this tag, is paying more for the knowledge and can kind of have a hand in the process of their hunt. We make it really personal. It feels like you're hunting with some friends. It's not like a guy that's just like, hey, I'm just here to show up and pull the trigger. We invite him to come scout with us. We keep it pretty small, very affordable. And
so you're not looking to take out Hunter Biden, right?
No.
Flies in, all hopped up, hops out of the truck, pulls the trigger, and says, "Okay, boys, cut it up and ship it back to me. Thanks."
Yeah, no. We keep it, pretty personal. And honestly, our ideal client is somebody that's probably hunted most of their life, and maybe hasn't stepped foot on that unit before, or just doesn't feel confident doing it on their own. You only get to do it once. And, that's the unfortunate thing about Utah is you're only going to get to harvest one buffalo in your entire life, and so we want to just make sure it's a really cool experience. We filmed that hunt. That's kind of originally what we started out at. Is Ty? I mean, he had a camera packed around on most of our hunts growing up, and so it was like maybe that's part of the service that we offer and do. And that kind of turned into, well, let's be our own outfitter, guide these hunts, and film them. And we've made some pretty cool movies out of.
That's cool. You guys are making memories of making memories.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, kind of the whole thing, like he's saying. We started out, we were guiding, but not technically guiding. Like, we're just hunting with family and friends, and it's like, how can we get in the field more often? What can we do? And then we want to catch it on film because that saves it forever and you can share it with more people. We did that for years. Like, I can remember like 2008, heck, clear back to 2005 when we were filming Dad's elk hunt. And then just, a lot of those are just saved on a flash drive in a file somewhere, personal hunts for people, and don't ever make it to YouTube or whatever, but it just got to where we're doing it all the time, and it's like, all right, well, we can do this. Let's do it for other people as well, like, and maybe make some money along the way too. But also, just kind of our niche when we first started out, like the slogan that we started with somewhat was "Your hunt, your memories. That's our passion." And we kind of took that and like just want to help people save and cherish their once in a lifetime experiences.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about what you guys are doing, especially with that film process, is the fact that they're able to focus on the hunt. Because, like I said, like, I'm new to this game, but like my boy and I and my partners, we go out and we're trying to film stuff, and we have no idea what we're doing. And I think the nice thing with what you guys are offering, it gives people an opportunity to like focus on the hunt itself. And you guys are kind of just in the background capturing that moment for them. So I think it's a great service that you guys are offering. So yeah, it's super cool. So with that being said, and I would be remiss if I didn't get my joke in about Josh being from Beaver. But I know outside of hunting in Beaver, I know it's a pit stop whenever you're on your way to St. George. And I'm like, what do you do besides sell like shot glasses and T-shirts that say I love Beaver? And Josh was kind enough to remind me that you get the cheese curds. So now I'm like salivating here. I think I got to stop
getting cheese curds, and it seems like everybody has to stop in at the pawn shop.
Pawn shop?
If you haven't,
I've never hit the pawn shop before.
Oh man, it's a relic. I worked there for probably a year, and at the time they sold more guns in Utah than any other gun store in the state. So it's actually something, if you haven't been, you should check it out. But it's a good hangout spot.
So the current, yeah. Well, I'm not going to go there. Yeah, I'll have to stop and check it out.
Get your cheese curds, go to the pawn shop.
How's it that we've been friends and brothers now for so long and hunted together? And this is the very time I'm hearing about the pawn shop.
I don't know, man. I figured everybody knew.
It's a closely held secret down there in Beaver. So
yeah,
probably just doubled their revenue, giving them a shout out on a podcast.
I hope so. Good guys in there,
for sure. So Josh, tell me, how did you get involved with these guys?
So I knew Trever when we worked at a business down here, a youth treatment center down here in St. George, almost 15 years ago. And it's actually really kind of funny because after I left that company, my wife and I were in Walmart one night, and Trever comes marching down the aisle. And one thing I've learned with Trever is, like, when he's going somewhere, he's moving, and he's marching down the aisle. And I stopped him and I was like, dude, what? Just started chatting him up, and he was like, dude, I just found a giant buck, and I'm going after him tomorrow. And he's like, I got to get some supplies, but I'm going after him. I was like, sweet, man. Like, if you need some help getting him out or whatever, let me know. If you need a spotter, give me a call, let me know. And, you know, he didn't end up working out on that one, but at that point we started kind of retouching in just the hunting world. And, you know, another time he was after another buck on Zion, and he said, you know, throw your pack in, let's go. And, you know, these guys hunt a lot different than I did when I was growing up. You know, they load the packs up and they go all day. And, you know, I just threw on this little backpack that I had, but Trever just was on the march, man. I couldn't keep up with him. And it was like, what in the world is this all about? And, yeah, he took me to the spot and we sat glass deer. We never made a play on that one either. But from that point on, it was just kind of like, man, when he was going, I wanted to go. And, you know, I got in touch with Ty, and, you know, we went on Trevor's Ponscont hunt, and, man, it's been a whole different experience. You know, the way I grew up, we basically sat on my dad built a platform when I was a kid that would sit above the oak brush on the Pavant. And it was really cool because we could watch deer all day long across the mountain face. And every once in a while he'd send us to the top of the mountain to do a deer drive. And I hated that as a kid, but now I look forward to like marching up these hills. And, you know, these guys, it's a whole different concept of hunting. And it's something that it's enjoyable to go out and spend the whole day. You know, I think growing up the way I did, it was deer moved in the mornings and then in the evenings. But when you go with these guys, you learn, like, you know, there's certain times of the day they get up and move around, and like those are times that you can pick up on other deer or other elk. And I don't know, it's cool. It's cool just to be out in the wild just all day.
I think it's been pretty fun watching how we can all accentuate each other with our different strengths. Like Josh said, I'll put my head down and go sometimes, and I'll look back and he's giving me a hand signal, and I'm like, he's picking up on something I'm not. You know, and Ty's always very observant as well. And this last hunt we guided a buffalo hunter, and I knew where we needed to get to. I knew where we wanted to get to be able to put a stock on these buffalo, because it was with a bow, and, you know, our hunter's going to have to get within 60 yards. And I'm just going, and I'm taking the route that I know I need to take to get there. And I look back, and Josh gives me one of these, and I'm like, why would we want to go climb that? And then it was like, you know, he gives me the wind swirl sign, and I'm like, I checked the wind, and, you know, I didn't even notice. So it's like just that accentuation of, you know, Josh is observant in certain ways, and I'm observant in other ways, and Ty's observant in other ways. And it's really nice because it helps us be really unified in the way we approach hunting and make sure our clients have the best experience that they can have. And we've all learned different things and different traits from each other, for sure. There's not a knot in camp that's not tied by Josh, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
So Josh is the Boy Scout.
Oh, 100%. Like
just when it comes to knots and building fires.
Yeah, I quit at Weeblow. I think you're like, what, 12 at that point?
I'll say too, the other thing is watching these guys when they were guiding with Taylor. You know, it was cool to watch them on these buffalo hunts, and I'd been putting in for buffalo for my once in a lifetime. And after this guy right here, after we went after him on in
What's
in
that?
2022.
Is that just a little thing over your shoulder there?
Yeah, a little guy right there.
38
Yeah.
bull, archery bull.
Just a little guy. You know, it was like, how can I do this more without necessarily having a tag in my pocket? Like, just the experience being out there with the guys I was out there with. My older brother was with me when we killed that, and, you know, I was like, how can I do this more even if I don't have a tag? And, you know, I watched these guys guiding buffalo and was like, that's the way to do it. Let's get I got my guide license at that point, and I enjoy hunting elk. I've loved hunting buffalo with these guys, and actually, coincidentally, the very next year I got to go hunt buffalo on the Henrys, and with my bow and harvested a good bull, and it's a story. It's a story in itself, but
Well,
yeah,
let's hear it.
The
You
cool
know,
part is our two best videos are Josh's limited entry elk hunt and once in a lifetime buffalo hunt.
Most
yeah.
years.
So the buffalo hunt was like, it was a turn back tag. So somebody turned their tag back in. I got a phone call. I think it was like December 28th. The hunt started like the second week of January. And, I called these guys, and we had actually guided a hunter in November. So we'd been on the Henrys. We found bulls over there. We kind of knew where buffalo were. And I called these guys, and they're like, "You got to take it, dude. We were just there. We know where they're at." I'm like, "There's 2 weeks till the hunt." Anyway, I remember Trevor said, "There's no snow. We know there's buffalo." And it was like, as soon as I accepted that tag, the Henry Mountains got dumped on the snow. Anyway, it was, we got up there. I think the first night, we spotted two buffalo. We weren't sure what they were, so we went back in the next day and found out that they were small bulls. So we left them alone, and we didn't see anything for probably another day and a half. And that's the interesting thing with the buffalo hunt is they're such big animals, but man, they blend into the cedars, and they're really, they can be hard to find. And
So hard to find and not hard to find all at the same time.
yeah.
I think people underestimate the size of those animals. I mean, you see them on TV and it's like, oh yeah, they're big. But like my cousin, he's got a bison ranch up in Laramie, and you go up there, and we went up and helped him harvest a bison this fall, and got rid of his bull for the winter, and they're massive. Like,
yeah. Well, and the other,
elevate your next adventure with blue coolers from Cata Sports, designed to keep your food and drinks ice cold no matter where the journey takes you. With top-tier insulation, rugged durability, and built-in wheels for easy transport, these coolers are the ultimate sidekick for all of your outdoor adventures. Best of all, they deliver unbeatable performance at a price that won't break the bank. Head on over to catasports.com and use promo code Ryan10 to save 10% off your order.
yeah. Well, and the other thing too is I think there's a misconception on the buffalo hunt. Everybody sees the videos coming out of Yellowstone, and they think that they're just standing on the side of the road and it's just to drive by and pick your buffalo and shoot it. But
Grocery shopping?
yeah, it is not like that.
Plains animal. That's not what the Utah Henry Mountains bison are.
No.
Yeah, somebody hasn't told the bison that they're supposed to be next to the road. But third day, we went up. We ended up on side by sides and four wheelers, and it was cold.
Yeah.
And because the area we were trying to get to, we couldn't get in a truck, and so we got to a glassing point, and I joked with Trevor about, like, dude, why do you always start glassing from the top of the mountain down? Why can't we find them down lower instead of at the peaks? And sure enough, he'd spotted 3 buffalo. It was like an epic spot. Like, I still don't know how he was able to locate them, but we found 3 bulls on this peak, and it was probably 1.5 miles away, which doesn't sound like a long ways, but we had to go down the canyon, back
And
up.
you said it had just snowed, right?
Yeah, we were in knee-high snow. And, we picked the route when Trevor talked to me about, like, what do you want to do? And I said, let's go after him. How long do you think it'll take to get up there? And he's like, probably about 3 hours. He's like, all right, let's go. So I had my oldest boy with me, and my dad, or my brother and my dad were there, and just me, Trevor, and my oldest boy took off. And, I was really worried about him, whether my son was going to be able to make it or not. And we're in knee-high snow. It's cold. And it was, on our YouTube video, kind of shows you the route that it took for us to get to him. And we didn't know. We would get to a ridge and then start heading down that other side. And it was like this row of baby aspens that had maybe a foot to squeeze between. And I'm trying to get my bow through there. You're getting caught on your pack. it was an absolute nightmare. And you'd hit the bottom, it would be deadfall in the bottom. It was a nightmare, but you know, you get back up and you start finding a different route. And eventually, you know, we got up there and we were at the base of the hill that the buffalo was on. And it had been, I think, 3 hours. And my brother came across the radio and was like, dude, where are you guys? I can't see you. We're like, we're barely on the face that he's on. So we're going to start heading up. And, you know, it was just cool. Like the buffalo laid there the whole time. And as soon as we started making our way up to them, they walked out into the open. And we worked our way up the tree line and basically got to almost right where they were bedded. And those buffalo went out and fed out in the open and then turned around and walked right back right to us. And, you know, they kept coming across the radio like, hey, they're in the trees with you guys. You got to be close. So just watch where you're going. And we literally took like 2 steps to the right, and the buffalo that I shot was standing on this little mesa looking down at us. And, you know, I was worried he was going to blow out of there, but he just turned broadside perfectly. He started feeding again. Trever stepped around and ranged him, and he was 42 yards. And, yeah, I stepped out of the trees and put a good shot on him. I mean, it was a little bit back, but he took off. And little did we know, the spotters were watching a giant buck. So the next thing we know was like, hey, they're running. I don't know what happened, but they're running. And, you know, Trever said, well, one of them's got an arrow in him. And it was actually really cool, like, to watch the video because there were 3 buffalo together. And they got out in the open, and the bull that I had shot was trying to lay down, and the other 2 were not going to let him. They kept sticking a horn in him, and they kept trying to pull the arrow out, which was crazy. But he just kind of did this circle up there and gave us time to run up and get another shot. And I shot him the second time at 80 yards, and, you know, that's not something I would take the first shot at 80 yards, but he already had an arrow in him. And I remember telling Trever, I'm like, dude, 80 yards. I'm not shooting him at 80 yards. And he goes, he's already got an arrow in him. Let's put another one in him. And ended up being a fatal shot. We got a total pass through.
You couldn't have walked up and put that arrow in a better spot. Like, it was the most incredible shot. Blew through both lungs, 80 yards. I didn't even know if he hit him. Like, I think you hit him. But
yeah, and their hearts are quite a bit higher than
low, very low.
Are they lower?
Very low.
Very low.
Way low.
Okay.
And they're a little bit further into the breast and the chest cavity. So
that's right.
Yeah, they're connected.
Yeah.
We found him not too far after, and we ended up having to just gut him and leave him on the mountain that night. We considered staying up there that night and building a fire, and both of our dads were like, "You guys will die up there. Get off the mountain." So it honestly, it took us 4 hours to get up there, probably 3 or 4 hours to get off the mountain, and then turn around and go do it all over again the next day to bring him out. But, you know, I say it's a once in a lifetime hunt, and it was a hunt of a lifetime. So, you know, and the thing that's funny is when I shot this elk, I had my wife in there with me the day before. And, well, probably 2 days. There was 2 days that she was with me. And she didn't grow up hunting, but it was like a cool experience. She got to listen to the bull's bugle. Never got one in to where she could actually see it. We did walk in on a cow, and she started the whole, like, shake and started to panic. And she got a little bit of the buck fever. But after I had called Trever and was like, dude, we're going to kill tomorrow. And anyway, after I had killed him, I come off the mountain, and as soon as I got service, called my wife, and like immediately it's such an emotional experience. And same thing with the buffalo hunt. We were at 10,000 feet and had perfect service. I FaceTimed my wife, and I had my oldest boy with me. My dad was watching from the glassing point. My older brother was there. And it's such an emotional experience that a lot of people don't understand. Like, if you've never hunted and you watch these videos of people that harvest an animal, And immediately the emotions start up and they start to shake and tears start coming. And, it's like, I don't know why I'm crying. I'm like super excited. I'm exhausted. I'm happy. It was, it was such an emotional experience that, I wouldn't want that hunt any other way. It was hard. One of the hardest things I've ever done, but I wouldn't want it any other way. So super cool experience.
I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Reiterate the fact we were at 10,000 feet. just to let you know where these buffalo live. I mean, we guided one this last January, because the way Utah does it is they do 5 gun hunts between October and December and January, and then they have an archery hunt in January. And like, we just killed one with a client this last January, 2 weeks ago, and we were over 10,000 feet again. Like, it's a hustle. And so, that's a big part of why, in my opinion, even if it's not us, it's always smart to hire a guide, especially for that hunt. We had a guy that we were keeping in touch with that also had a tag this last January, and he's like, I don't know how to get this thing out. Like, they had horses slide off the road in a trailer because of the road conditions. And it's like, sometimes you're just paying for that service. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're not a capable hunter. Like, most of our clients are fully capable of harvesting an animal on their own, breaking it down on their own. It's just a matter of, like, when you get a buffalo on the ground and you've got, 500 pounds of meat at least that you're going to be pulling out of there, like, that's worth the money itself.
Yeah, those things are not, like I said, it was my first experience harvesting a bison, and it was not a hunt. It was, a guy came up, bought it, and he wanted to harvest it with his bow. But yeah, it was a big bull, and I think we pulled off like 645 pounds of meat. But we took him up, skinned him, caped him, took some tenderloin out, threw it on the grill. We were having a good old time. But I mean, we struggled moving that animal, and we had like a backhoe. I mean, we had like forklift. It was. Yeah. I couldn't imagine doing it without having a forklift.
Yeah. Us 3 backhoes.
Yeah.
These are the backhoes.
You can see in our this last September, we guided an elk hunter, and in the video I made a joke of, we're calling the pack mules. And there's a part where Josh starts walking up, and I'm like, pack mule number 1. And then my dad starts coming up, I'm like, pack mule number 2. Because, it's just everything's going on our backs. And they're not light, but Ty could probably tell the story of one of the worst pack outs and clients we ever had on the Henrys.
That was interesting. But
let's hear it.
Just real quick before we move on off of Josh's hunt, just to add to it, like, Josh is saying the emotions and all the stuff behind it. Like, when you think about it, how many people in the world, what percentage of the people in the world can say that they harvested a bison with a bow on public land, like free roaming, do-it-yourself hunt? There's not a very big percentage of humans.
I was going to say, do you know the percentage? I would imagine it's less than single digits.
Yeah,
it's got to be small. I'd have to research that and whatever. And I'm a research guy. Usually I'm more prepared than that, but that kind of just come out.
Yeah. Well, and that too. The other thing too, just to go along with what you guys were saying is Josh, you talked about the emotions, like, being overcome. I call it like mountain medicine, right? Like, just getting out.
That's actually hilarious. You call it mountain medicine. That's like my favorite slogan, and I hashtag everything I ever post mountain medicine.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I do.
Well, maybe
So
it's just a little
Outdoors,
divine
like,
intervention.
On our Instagram, everything, like, it's one of my catchphrase, like, things that we've started forever.
Well, I won't steal it from you, but I'll give you credit for it.
I even there's a elk video that's called Mountain Medicine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm gonna have to go. Now I'm gonna have to go search it up. But just like it's a reset. Like I said, for me, I feel like it's something that I've just had like missing from my life. And I went up and did some scouting. Last summer, I took my wife up and she likes hiking, and she's like, "This is not fun." Because it's like we're like going down like these slopes, and she's like, this is not hiking," and I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I'm surprised that you like this," and I'm like, "It's a reset. You get up there, you do that, and then like you said, you get overcome with emotions. I mean, there's the part. I haven't harvested anything, and I've just gone out and just beat myself up for days and days and days on end for the past 4 years. And so I'm sure when I finally take an animal down on my own, there's going to be some emotions. It's like, man, but you get those close calls and it makes it worth it. I hate golf, but it's kind of like golf, right? You go out, you play 18 holes, and you have like that one hole. It's like, like maybe I'll play one more time again. But
I think that's part of, sorry, I think that's part of the whole emotional thing of it is you put so much work and effort and time even before the hunt starts. You're scouting, we go to the range all the time, and to actually, you put so much work and effort into it and money into this, and then for it to finally pay off. And there's just a lot of emotion, like, with bow hunting, you're in close, man, you're in their territory, and to actually come out on top, it's probably one of the most rewarding experiences. And then the emotions kick of like, I just remember standing on top of the Henrys, like I I did it. I had so many people that I think doubted that we were going to be able to do it, and to know what it took for us to get there, to actually have it play out, and then to have the family experience with you.
Yeah.
For me, that was what hunting was all about, was the whole family experience. And I mean, I had 3 generations of family members there. Some of my closest friends I consider family, and for it to all come together, it is, man. It's just an emotional experience, and you'll have that experience someday.
Yeah, I'm having it. I'm going to have it this year, Josh. I'm going to have it this year.
I hope so.
It's interesting because I've always tried to articulate it the best I can. It's like you have an animal, and we're pretty conservation based. Like, we do want to harvest the oldest animal. We do want to keep that conservation aspect in our outfitting business and in our do-it-yourself hunts. And it's like that animal has lived through harsh winters, droughts, predators. Who knows how many hunters when it comes down to like a general deer unit. And it's like, I'm the one that outsmarted that like incredible creature in his element and had the opportunity to harvest it. Like, that's what makes me want to go year after year after year, and then provide that opportunity for somebody else. Like, that's why we like the business that we're in. It's not about a paycheck. We're not making a ton of money, if any, but it is so cool when we get to relive these memories with these guys and let them experience something that we've had the opportunity to experience our whole life and we've never taken for granted.
I mean, and you look at some of the areas that you get to go in and try and harvest these animals. I mean, it's beautiful. Like, I can't. My thing is, I keep going back to. It's like, could I have survived back like in like the Mountain Man era? And the answer right now is no. I'd have starved a long time ago. But it's been fun.
Ryan,
like, go ahead.
Do you have a certain hunt this year that you were saying you're going to take care of it this year? You're going to get to experience it?
I just mindset, right? I mean, I'm going to get an OTC elk tag. We're looking, there's a couple of us, we've been invited up to Montana and Idaho to go do a black bear hunt.
Perfect.
So we're noodling that one, still trying to work out the
Yeah.
details there. But I just think, so like to your point, like Josh and Ty, like you guys talked about like the research that you do. That's the biggest thing. So like I started this podcast because I'm like, I want to learn how to hunt. Like I legitimately have questions, and like my full-time gig, like I work at iHeartMedia in sales, right? And the Meat Eater network is through iHeartMedia. So his podcast side, and it's like constantly sold out. And so I've got clients I've been working with, and they're like, dude, you should start a podcast. Like you have like a ton of questions, and you're asking questions that other people are thinking about.
Yeah.
So I'm like 4 months into this now, and I have learned so much I mean, we started out doing one podcast a week. Now we're dropping 2 a week. And I just feel like my learning curve has just like skyrocketed upwards. And there's so many things that it's like, I'm hearing these different situations and things that happen. And it's like, oh, I was there. I did that wrong. So next time I'm like, I hang these things, hang up from these calls, and I sit down and I just like go to my notes. I'm like, okay, I remember the situation. It was similar to mine. Here's what I did wrong. Right. Like you're talking about like the wind swirling. Like that's how I got busted. I've only drawn back on one bull. I've only seen one bull, like close enough to where I could like draw back on it. And I learned what I did wrong.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like in that situation, I don't know that there was necessarily anything I did wrong. I was going down a slope. The wind was coming up, and we were trying to go down to see if we could sneak in on something. And this bull came in behind me like a freight train. And I'm like, oh, like, well, this is easy. Like 30 yards, but he was in scrub oak. Right. So I couldn't like for people that listen to this podcast, I only have one hunting story, so I'm sorry that you guys have to hear it again, but I'll just share it with these guys real quick. Like, I told myself, if I don't have a clean shot on vitals, like, I'm not going to take it. And I didn't have a clean shot. He was in scrub oak. I'm watching him walk. He's 30 yards, he's about 3 yards from stepping into an opening. And I'm drawn back, and I'm like locked in, and I'm like, it was a big bull. I mean, for my first bull, I would have been like, maybe I should stop after this one. Anyway, then I feel the wind hit like the back of my neck, and I'm just like, oh, I'm toast.
Yeah.
And then he stops, turns, looks at me, and was gone. It was the last day of the hunt, like archery season, and I'm only doing archery. That's what I'm like, I don't know why I decided to do that. I mean, well, I know why, but now that I'm like, let's start with like the difficult form of harvesting an animal.
Right.
But I love it. And that's the one thing, like I practice shooting all the time. Like like you said, like Trevor's like, hey, 80 yards, like let it fly. I'm a taller guy. So where my center of balance comes in when I'm drawn back, like that 60 to 80 yards, man, I've got a tighter grouping than when I'm 20 yards.
Yeah.
So like, I feel confident. Like I said, I kind of rambled on there, but it's just a mindset. Like if you decide like you're going to go do something, like you're going to go do it. We went out this year and we had that mindset. We were going to go do it. The weather, as I'm sure you guys were aware, it didn't push the bulls down to where we were at, where we thought they would be. And then it goes back to like learning. I'm like, oh, we were in the wrong area, and we should have gone, we should have moved up. We needed to move up higher elevation and see if we could track him down. But I don't know. Like I'm trying to figure it out. You ask guys, and guys are helpful as far as giving you ideas. But until you get out there and put like your feet on the ground, there's just a learning curve that you go through. So.
Well, and ultimately, also, you can do all the research you want. You can perform a perfect stock. You can have the perfect scenario, and it takes 5 seconds for that wind to shift, and you did everything perfectly. And now your 4-hour stock is completely blown.
Yeah.
And that's just hunting, right? There's no learning curve on that other than just okay, today wasn't my day.
Yeah. And that also makes you want to cry.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I think you have those experiences forever. So I don't think you ever have the full knowledge of hunting. So just so you know, like you never
It's a
master it. It's a constant learning experience.
That's the one thing is that I've discovered is I'm not under any illusion that I'm ever going to master this. Plus, I'm 45. I got started in this when I was 41 years old. I'm like way behind the game. But I will say this. I have been impressed with my ability to outwork the young guys that I've, my son and his buddies that we've taken out. Like I'm stopping as we're going up the hill. Like, are you guys good? Like, let's keep pushing. I can't imagine I'm keeping up with you, Trevor, but I for
it's
sure,
a hard thing to do.
I for sure, like that's the one thing that I really have kind of like prided myself on is being in shape to be able to, give myself an opportunity to try and harvest an animal, which is the other side of it.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Well, and it makes it that much sweeter when it finally does happen.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
I'm
I said,
guy,
go ahead.
I'm a guy that like, I'll start reflecting on it. I'm like, well, if this stock would have worked, then I wouldn't even have killed this buck. Or, if I'd have killed a deer that year, then I wouldn't even had an opportunity to kill the buck that I killed in 2021. Like, in my opinion, it just, if you look at it that way, like, man, everything just laid out exactly how it was supposed to. So when you finally do get that first harvest, you're going to be like, I am so grateful for all of the mistakes and the blown stalks because it just made this one that much more sweeter.
Yeah. Well, and you're refining your skill. You're refining. I look at bow hunting as an art. I mean, I'm not knocking I'm sure at some point I'm going to start rifle hunting. But you don't have, you have to get to a point when you're bow hunting to where you can like reach out and touch the animal, and you have to be quiet, and you have to there's the wind, there's a million things that go into it, and I'm just barely starting to scratch the surface on learning. But the fun thing is being able to take all these different conversations and kind of piece different scenarios together. I'm like, oh, I could have done this differently, which maybe increases my chances by 2%. And you do this, and you just start to stack those on top of one another, and it's fun. Like it's turning to me, it's turning into a game. I mean, it beats sitting around playing the Xbox or whatever it is, PlayStation. I was going to say,
well,
Nintendo
you're living life instead of something else. You're making your life that learning experience, and finding something that is you're passionate about, which is, kind of the whole purpose of everything, right?
Yeah. And the fun thing is if it was not for my son wanting to get started in hunting, he turns 25 this year, but he was like, Dad, let's do it. And he went and bought a bow before I did. And, it's something that we're able to do together. Like we're doing this podcast together. He does all the graphic design and he's gotten really good, and he's getting into the filming. He's gotten much better at understanding that side of it, but he's like, who's going to film when I'm hunting? And I'm like, you tell me where to point and shoot, I'll do it. But we've got great guys like Dustin, who Trevor you've spoken with, and Quinn. We've got some good partners on this, and we're trying to build something fun, and we want to be able to share our passion for hunting and the outdoors with others, and especially people that are new to hunting, which is why we started this podcast, is just for me to learn. And I talk to guys all the time that have been hunting for years, and they're like, yeah, I was listening and you had this kid on, this 19-year-old, and he shared a story, and he's like, I learned something from him. I had forgotten about this basic little thing that he talked about. So he's telling me I made a mental note to apply that to my game. So
it helps that you had Donnie Vincent on, because I don't know if there's anybody that I personally admire with their approach and perspective on hunting more than him. So
he's a good dude. Are you guys going to be at the Hunt Expo?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we'll have to connect there. I got an invite to come and do the podcast from there, so I'll be there probably every day doing something. But yeah, Donnie and I are going to try and connect and record another podcast with him. Yeah, Donnie's a stud. Like his approach, his whole like conservation, and just the dude's smooth like butter.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
his films, I mean, the way he does everything, and he's a good guy. So yeah, that was fun. That was I learned a lot there, and like I said, he hung out after we finished recording the podcast, and he was super, kind to give his time, and we sat and talked for another 30 minutes, and he gave me some pointers and things. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that was a good way to launch this podcast. Was having him on for sure. So anyway, I rambled for like way too long. Ty, you've got a funny story that you were going to share with us, and then you wanted to touch base on Josh's bison hunt and all that fun stuff. But then I derailed the conversation.
I don't know how funny
You
it
just got to
is.
tell the Daniel story.
My back probably still is not recovered from that hunt. But yeah, no, this was, so we're, Trev was, we have, we try take clients, or our niche is like people that have hunted before, like kind of want it to be like we're hunting with buddies. This was not that client. This was a guy that had not been in the field ever, like ever. Didn't know much, couldn't carry his pack really. And Daniel's a great guy. Like, client's good dude. Not trying to run him down or nothing like that. Just very green, no experience, anything like that. Well, we get up and we kill this bison after, we were putting him in positions and trying to get close, and we couldn't. We would get to like within 1,000 yards, and we're hunting with a rifle, and he's got this souped up gun that he can lay down and he can shoot. And he says anywhere from 850 to 1,300 yards, I'm good. And me and Trevor like, no, you're not. Not on a bison, not on a hunt. It's fun to shoot a gong at that far, but not a bison. But anyway, we work and we get this guy, he gets a shot on this buffalo, and we kill this bison. We get it out, or, we get to it, we pack it up, we're cutting him up, get everything going. And, we end up throwing the head and the cape on Trev. I think I had a quarter and the back half of the cape, because somebody mentioned that you could cape off the back half and you can make a rug out of it. So we have to do that too. we got to do that now.
So over 100 pounds.
Easy.
Oh,
easy.
Yeah, the head and the cape alone, that's a ridiculous pack in itself. Plus, we've got gear that we've been hunting with. Like, we didn't go empty packs. Like, and it was just me, Trev, and Daniel. And Daniel's not got a backpack really. No. I think maybe his coat was in there and his gloves. We carried his water. We carried his snacks.
I carried his gun for 5 days.
Trevor carried his gun.
So he wanted to make sure he got his money's worth.
He definitely did, for sure. So we cut up this bison. We get it loaded up. We're hiking off of there, and like I said, I got a quarter and the back half of the cape on my pack, and I'm carrying my video camera and everything. I'm like, and he's struggling, and he's like, "Who's gonna carry my gun?" And so we're like, "You're gonna carry your gun." He's like, "Oh no, I can't carry my gun. I need to have my hands free in case I slip and I can catch myself." And we're like, "Oh, okay." So me and Trevor ended up switching off. He'd carry the gun, I'd pack the camera and the tripod, and we'd flip flop, just to try, because this was not, a light gun. This was a mag. This
Was
thing
there
was
a
a
string on that gun?
He wouldn't put a
was
sling
there no he so there was a sling, but it was in the truck because it was that's a whole other thing. It's all hard to explain.
This
It's
is
just Daniel.
good notes for anybody listening of like what not
It's-
to do
Yeah.
to your outfit.
on.
or
Why I
your
wanted
bag.
him to tell the story.
And so we get that, we pack out, we get back to the truck. We don't get back till, I don't know, Trev, what time was it when we got back to the truck that night?
Oh, it was probably 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it's dark.
I can actually see the frustration of that situation coming back on Trevor's face, like his expressions. It's taking him back.
Also, a snowstorm had just blew in too, and visibility was like 0, and the wind was blowing 5 miles an hour. Anyway, so we get to the truck, we unload, we get driving back to town, and we have stayed in some cabins at the local town, and we get going back to town, and Daniel pops up and he goes, "So, what's your guys' plan in the morning? How long do you guys think it'll take to get the rest of that bison out for me?" And we're like, "You're not coming?"
Us?
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh no, I don't think that it's a very good idea for me to go. I'll just slow you guys down, right? You guys probably just want to go by yourselves." And we're like, "Okay. Well, there's only 2 of us
And half a
to
buffalo.
pack bison out. There's still 3 quarters up there, all the scrap meat, everything else, all the back straps, the hanging tenders, the whole gig." He's like, "Yeah, I'll just slow you guys down. You guys can, yeah." And he tells us, we're like, "All right, well, we'll figure it out. We'll get it done." And he says, "Okay, well," so this guy's non-resident, and he says, "Well, what time do you think you guys will be back? Because I kind of really like maybe around noon or something, because I want to get out of here. I want to get loaded up and get back home. I want to get back to Vegas." And we're like, "Daniel, we'll do our best, okay? We'll do our best." And so me and Trev wake up the next morning. We drive in there before daylight, hike up in there. It's complete blizzard, white out. You can only see 10 feet in front of you. We go up in there. We still got, the bison's gutted and got a quarter off, and we've skinned it and everything, but we still have to quarter up the rest, cut it up, pack it up. We've got 2 packs and a little over half a bison. We get it all loaded up, and there's footage on our Instagrams of us making that pack out, and you cannot see. It looks like you're in just the awfulest snowstorm ever.
It was the worst I'd ever been in, for sure.
So bad.
He starts texting, "Are you guys back yet? Have you left?
Are
we there yet?"
Yeah, we're coming down off the hill, and where we're at, the service is spotty, but we catch a spot of service, and we're about halfway on this pack out. This was not an easy pack out. This thing was on top of the world.
So
and just steep, like it's just in a spot where the access, there's like basically one way in, one way out. And we get a text from Daniel, and it's like, "Hey,"
I was joking when I said that, but
no.
we get a text from Daniel, and he's like, "Hey, we're all packed up, and we're just gonna meet you down on the road because we're trying to get out of here." And it's just one of them things, like, okay, you just work through it. Gotta love the guy.
So how did he get this hunt? Like, that's because if it's a green guy and this is like a once in a lifetime bison hunt, he like shows up and he's like, "Hey guys, I got this.
Yeah.
Can we get a bison with that?"
Yep.
Yeah,
I think
had like 6
Trever-
points, didn't he?
he was the non-resident that year, and just,
Yep.
I mean,
Got lucky.
there's only like 2 of those, I think, for that rifle hunt. Maybe even only 1 tag, and he pulled that tag.
Well, lucky you guys.
Yeah. No, and like Ty said, he's a nice guy. It's just I like to tell people that story because it's like, if there's ever something not to do, is to not involve yourself in the coolest parts of the process of that hunt. You know, it's not just about pulling the trigger. And for some guys it is, and that's fine. You know, like, you got your bucket list guys, but that's not our usual clientele. But it's like,
I couldn't imagine not wanting to be part of that.
right.
I mean, like when I get home, like I want to be herding.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like for me, like that's like that. When I'm done with a hunt, like I want to get back and just be like you said, like multiple trips, and you know, I want to be able to sit down and tell my grandkids, it's like, hey, you guys have got a story. You guys have a great story, but it's like it's that's what makes the fun stories. But I mean, if anybody out there, that never crossed my mind. I didn't even think that people would do that, but I'm at a loss, actually.
Guiding process, like you don't get to, I mean, you can kind of be selective and try find the right client base, but like he ended up finding us, and I mean, we have to accept the fact, and it's like, okay, you know, not everybody, there's a reason he hired us.
Yeah.
Like he hired us. He cannot do this on his own. He would not be able to do this. And so, I mean, there's the frustrating side of it, but then there's also like the rewarding side of it from our perspective is this guy would not have been able to pull that off, would not have been able to have that experience and make those memories without our help. And that feeds us and makes us feel good.
Yeah, that it reminds me, I saw, I can't remember who it was, but I don't know. Somebody had posted a meme. It's like when your Flander friend shows up for a mountain hunt and says he's in mountain shape.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like Spanky from like Little Rascal sitting there like twiddling his fingers, like waiting. It was something like that. But yeah, if I would just encourage anybody out there that's maybe new to hunting, if you get one of those, if you draw a lucky tag and you haven't been prepared, I would encourage you to be part of the entire process. Don't put it on your guides to get your animal out. Clearly you guys are willing to help, but shoulder some of that burden so that you don't wind up a story they share with other people in a negative way. And like you said, nice guy. I'm sure he was a super nice guy.
Yeah.
And like,
it is part of the process. You know, it's part of the whole thing. Like he hired us for a reason. Like, yeah, it would be nice
like
to
these
have
suckers.
Yeah. I'm getting my money out of these guys. But and then there's like guys like John, who we guided last year, who's an older gentleman. He was 74, 74. And so obviously he can't help, you know, and he's in a position where, I mean, similar thing, like it took him 20 some years to draw that tag, 25 years to draw that tag. Now he's in his 70s and can't pull it off by himself. He needed the help, and he can't pack out. He can't do that stuff. And I mean, that's rewarding for us in that way too. Like, okay, we were able to help this guy accomplish a dream of his.
But you probably also didn't find that out after the animal was down. Right?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he probably came in. He's like, "Hey guys, look, like here's the situation."
Right.
And if you know that going into it, it's entirely different than, you know, a person that should be capable and should be willing and not being that.
Yeah, I think Daniel was like mid 40s, late 40s. very capable. I mean, is it like kind of a fit dude, you know, like not
Yeah.
capable.
Capable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Capable. And if you're going to do that, you should be prepared.
Well, you just kill an animal. Like we can also, you know, we need to respect the process of the whole thing, and you know,
Yeah.
do our part.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys were super gracious through the whole process, which, I'm sure can be appreciated. I, on the other hand, that's not my personality. I would have been like, no, like I'm going to drag your ass up the mountain,
Well,
and you're going to
kill it.
help pack this out, or I'm going to take you up there. I'm going to leave you up there, and anyway, that's clear. That's why
Well,
I'm not on the other side of this business.
you know, and I will say also, we had to drag him up the mountain to kill him, but Trevor did hold his hand across all the creeks. So
Oh, oh,
I'll never forget that.
well, it sounds like if somebody wanted to work with PSC Outdoors, like you guys would be there to hold their hand through the entire process,
Yeah.
if
Literally.
needs be.
Yeah, realistically, like on a serious note, like there's nobody that wants them to fill their tag as much as we do. You know, like I think, yes, we want to provide an awesome memory and a good experience, but like we want them to fill their tag too. So like we're not gonna short them any, and sometimes that means giving a little bit of a tush push and being like, nope, we got to go. I don't care how long it takes us. Like we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get that. And I, it's good to have somebody to push you along, and, it's like what Goggins calls it. He's like, you got a regulator in your brain, right? He's like, you always got more. It's just turning off that mental regulator that says like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
And keeping that pedal to the metal and going. And like I said, if you need to take a rest, take a rest, but you also can't sit down and take a nap. But well, guys, hey, I really appreciate your time. Aside from not being, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this without being too rude, but maybe ill prepared when you go out on the mountain. Is there any other advice you would leave to somebody who's maybe new to hunting and maybe working with a guide for the first time?
If I were to have any advice, it would just like don't feel dumb or to be vulnerable and just ask questions with whatever guide you're talking with. You know, usually I'm talking to a hunter that's planning on booking with us 6 to 8 weeks before they even come. You know, like, hey, what are your favorite drinks? What do you got for a pack? What type of caliber gun are you shooting? And like, I mean, we even send like the bison diaphragm of like what it looks like of the anatomy, and just, hey, study this and learn where to aim because it's different than a deer and an elk. Like, so don't be scared to just kind of put to ease some of those anxieties going into the hunt, and just, you're not dumb for asking those questions. Like we welcome it, and we've kind of got proactive in like just asking some of the ones we feel are important. But like, if you're going to work with the guide, ask tons of questions. Hey, does this gear work? What's temps going to be like? You know, worst case, best case scenario, so I know what clothes to pack. And then just, you know, what is the terrain like? How are we going to get from point A to point B? And just ask lots of questions.
All right, so I got a question for you then, because this is one that because I haven't really been out doing any of the winter type hunts. Like, what insulation boots do you recommend? I mean, if there's a specific brand, like feel free to throw it out there. But like, I start looking because I thought that I had warm feet, and I don't think I have warm feet.
We all run Crispies. I love Crispies. They do have a 400-gram insulate boot. I wear the guide boot. I think we all wear the guide boot just because it's fully waterproof. And then I'll actually change socks depending on season. So like, I got my summer season sock. I got a midweight sock if it's, kind of cooler. And then I have the heavyweight sock from Darn Tough Socks. And I seem to, for the most part, be able to keep my toes warm. Crispy will always be my recommendation. And then a really good, like, cold weather specific sock.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've got I'm going to out myself how new I am. The crispy, what is it, like Laponia?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I think that's what it is. I really like them. I mean, they're great for fall. And I went up and was helping Dustin and Quinn. We were doing some mule deer hunting, and my feet got a little chilly just in those. I mean, I threw some warm socks on, those darn tough, like it worked. But, 4 hours later, when you're standing on snow or frozen ground, toes start to get cold. But anyway.
For sure.
Okay.
I think, like me personally, I run hot. I don't even run a insulated boot. Like I just run an uninsulated boot, and kind of we're always moving. We move so much and hike so much. The insulated boots for me personally end up, my feet sweat too much in them, and then they get cold after I've sweat too much in them. So, I mean, it kind of depends on your hunting style as well.
Yeah. Well, when I'm out, when I'm elk hunting, which is what my boy and I primarily do, like we're moving quite a bit and it's hot. So you don't typically have a issue keeping your feet warm. Like you said, it's the opposite, but yeah, no, it's like I said, it's those types of things that, like, you mentioned, if you're prepared, you haven't been out doing winter hunting or something, like just ask the question. Cause I think that's the other thing too, is if you're comfortable in a hunt, it makes it a lot easier to like push.
Yeah.
Cause like if you're freezing and you're ill prepared with the proper layers and clothes to stay warm or cool, then I feel like the mental battle even gets amplified even more. At least that's been my personal experience with what I've been doing.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Well, Josh, Ty, anything else? Any last words of wisdom you guys wanted to add? Trevor?
I don't think so.
Do you guys have a website folks can find if they wanted to chat with you?
Yeah, it's just pscoutdoors.com. I can send you the link to that.
I'm pretty sure I can find it. So, guys, hey, if you're listening and you're interested, if you draw out one of those rare bison tags or elk, mule deer, whatever it is, and you want to work with a guide, these guys are awesome at what they do. They're great guys. Sounds like you'd have a great time out there. Maybe have to put a bungee cord on Trevor, let him drag you up the mountain. But we'll put links in the show description. We'll link it on social. Stay safe out there, and God bless you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Hunt Stealth Podcast. Hey, I have a favor to ask. If you would and you enjoy this podcast, head on over to wherever you consume it and leave us a review. It's going to help us get this pumped out to more people that might be interested in hearing podcasts like this.